Welcome back, CJ Sweat Show. Joining us now is the former accountant to Dan Snyder. So, Chris, we've been friends for a few years now. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. Great to have you here.
Happy to join you guys.
Yeah, listen, I've been wanting to do this for a while. Chris and I have known each other for a few years. He's a really good guy. Now, you used to be Dan Snyder's personal accountant, and I posed this question to you earlier. What you think of Bruce Allen? I think the Redskins have absolutely butchered this deal with Kirk Cousins. I think he's going to leave. I think he's going to go to San Francisco. I think he will at least experience borderline success there with what I believe is a good offensive coordinator in Kyle Shanahan, or I guess he's now the head coach there, and a good GM, John Lynch. Now, you disagree with me. Tell my listeners why you disagree.
Well, very simply, I mean, Kirk Cousins is the Dallas Cowboy equivalent of Tony Romo. I mean, essentially, why are you going to pay top dollar for Tony Romo? I mean, we know what Tony Romo did, and the guy's unemployed right now, hoping to make the golf tour.
Okay, that's true, but here's the thing, though, Chris. If you let Cousins go, what's the alternative to Kirk Cousins?
Currently, I don't even know who their backup is. Isn't it like Colt McCoy?
Yes.
What do you really lose that much? I mean, what are the Redskins playing for this year? Another Jordan Reed injury year. Terrell Pryor's going to lead the NFL in receiving yards. Highly doubt it. I mean, realistically, the Redskins are stuck in a rut, that 8-8, 7-9, 9-7 rut where, they can't get a high enough draft pick to really heavily improve their team, yet at the same point they can't push and make the playoffs. And they have holes all over that offense and defense right now. So, I mean, realistically, I think they need to let Cousins go, maybe trade him, see if you could trade him, sign and trade or something along those lines to get some draft picks. But a lot of poor decisions made in the past, are still heavily impacting these guys.
But okay, so if you trade Cousins away and you get something for him, who do you get? I mean, so we know this year would basically be it'd be essentially a tank year. Who do you get though to step in and fill the shoes at quarterback?
I'd feel just as comfortable rolling with Colt McCoy. Let it all blow up. Wow. Who knows? Maybe make a trade for Tyrod Taylor. I think he'd be a little bit more exciting than Kirk Cousins running behind that porous offensive line.
You couldn't have picked a quarterback to cause more heartburn for me than Tyrod Taylor. I swear. I've done nothing but go after that guy for the past 2 years. So you would blow this thing up. You'd blow up the Redskins. You'd say, okay, Colt McCoy, you're going to take the reins for the next year. And then what do? You draft Sam Darnold? Do you draft the guy out of UCLA, Josh Rosen? Where do you go from there?
I'm a big fan of Josh Rosen. Sam Darnold's pretty polished. Seems to have a good head on his shoulders, but I really like the talent level of the guy of Rosen from UCLA. Here's the problem. The Redskins are going to lose Cousins this year to free agency because they haven't got him signed. He's pissed off. And what are they going to end up with next year? They're going to end up trading away the next 3 first-round picks, wash, rinse, repeat. There's your Washington Redskins.
So do you think either of those guys, though, can step on the field next year and add wins over what Kirk Cousins will next year? I mean, I don't see them drafting their way into a quarterback situation. I mean, that's what the Browns have tried to do for 25 years, and it hasn't worked for them.
Yeah, but there are several other teams who have been trying to draft quarterbacks and have fared pretty well. I mean, the Patriots seem to be notorious for drafting quarterbacks in the lower rounds, the second and on, and turning out draft picks because of it. To be honest, I think all Kirk Cousins does for the Redskins this year is get him to 8-8, 9-7, and I don't really think that benefits the Redskins because they'll miss the playoffs by a game again. And like I said, wash, rinse, repeat. So, I mean, are you going to be any better with Kirk Cousins? Go out and sign Jay Cutler. I mean, are you going to be any worse? Maybe a game, maybe two, but at the end of the day, you're sitting at home come January.
Okay. Well, you do make some interesting points, but I
actually like what you're saying. I hate the Redskins. So, gosh, I mean, why don't they just pick up all the Duke players and just try to make a team out of that? That would make them even worse.
Chris is also a Kentucky fan.
I don't think Rosen and Darnold will be ready to step right in. I think they'll be better than like a Jared Goff. But, you know, realistically, they're going to need some seasoning. I mean, Kirk Cousins needed a lot of seasoning. With the Redskins, isn't he? He's been in the league for 5 or 6 years, I believe it is. You know, but at the same point, I mean, you're never going to get better if you can't finally put an offensive line in front of this guy. Give him some receivers not named Terrell Pryor, who caught most of his catches playing in garbage time in Cleveland. You know, he needs talent. He needs talent around him. The best player on that offense is Jordan Reed, and the guy plays 11 games a year, max. You know, so realistically, I think they're just in a world of turmoil. You know, they really need to. And I'm a big believer in Bruce Allen. The guy's very intelligent. I met him. He's got a hell of a handshake. Not as strong as Mike Shanahan, but hell of a handshake. And I think what happens is, I mean, he's the one who drafted Kirk Cousins. Snyder put his name. Snyder wanted RG3. You know, so they ended up drafting 2 quarterbacks that year. And a lot of what happens is, you know, Bruce makes smart moves and tries to set him up for the future, and then, you know, Dan Snyder's got tickets to sell, and he's a marketing genius, and so he's going to do that, and he's going to continue to do that. And hopefully they someday can, you know, break out of this 9-for-7 slump.
You kind of made my point. I don't know if you were listening to the show earlier, but I said, you know, CJ is looking at this from how can we add wins and you know, have a good season and make the playoffs. And I said, look, when Snyder's looking at it, he's looking at it completely different. He wants to know how can we either save money or grow revenue. Like, how can we make more profit out of this deal? And of course, winning games.
To some extent, I mean, some inside information here, having worked for him and spent a lot of time with him. I mean, he really does care passionately about the Redskins. He would love to see them win. I mean, the problem is he's an alpha, just like a Bruce Allen or a Jerry Jones.
Most of these owners are, by the way.
You know, if he. Right. Well, a lot of them, when they get older, wisen up and let people who, you know, are pros and who are established in this business do their job.
I think that was a stat.
You know, Snyder's still relatively young, and, you know, he wants to put his stamp on everything, and nothing wrong with that. The problem is, you know, it hasn't been a very good stamp over the last 5 years or so.
There's nothing wrong with that if you're good at it.
Exactly.